Steele Plus tour with selections for week number 1 of the college football season. Week 0, we went 1-1 on these plays. Let's hope we get ourselves a solid winning week this week. And once again, the purpose of the tape generally to show you how Phil Steele Plus works, but also to give you some free selections. So let's get started with it. Now, I will say this. The beauty of Phil Steele Plus is the fact that when it's updated during the season, you get this updated all season long. So I don't have a lot to show you. As you can tell, there hasn't been a lot of games played so far, but I still am going to show you a lot of features on Phil Steele Plus that you can use and ways to use those updated numbers once they start popping up. Well, let's start with the first game. We're going to Cincinnati against Miami of Ohio. So we're going to put Miami of Ohio on the left because they're the visitor, and we're going to put Cincinnati on the right. Now, we're just scrambling a little bit. 84 games this week. I'm not able to get you all the pictures I wanted to get you on this week's episode, but I will explain this. When you look at your magazine page, go to your magazine page for Cincinnati and Miami of Ohio, basically for Miami of Ohio. That's page 327. And when you go there and look at the page, take a look at how they do in non-conference games against the spread. About 4 years ago, Chuck Martin started devoting all his prime attention into conference games, and he's done well. He's gone 25-9 straight up in the MAC his last 34 games. However, by doing that, they have gone 2-11 against the spread in non-conference games. So take a look here. They lost to Iowa. Well, let's go take a look at the actually for this, let's go take a look at the spread records last 40 years. And as you could tell here, let's go back to 2020. They played all conference games here. But non-conference games, they played at Ohio State. They lost the game against the spread. At Cincinnati, lost the game against the spread. Tennessee Tech lost the game against the spread. Iowa lost the game against the spread. So right here, this number tells you if they won or lost against the spread. It's something we've got more than the magazine, so this is always the spread record here, not the straight-up record. You, of course, know the straight-up records of the games. Come over here, they lost to Marshall against the spread, Cincinnati against the spread, Minnesota against the spread. And basically, they do great when conference play, but not so great in non-conference games. 2-11 against the spread, their last 13 non-conference games. And so you see how the spread records are updated here for Miami? Let me just pull it over here a little bit. This takes you 2000 all the way back to 1988. For Miami of Ohio. So then back here, as you could tell, they weren't even lined games. Well, the only time they were lined was when they played FBS. That's why we don't have previous records of that. I'll show you more of a one when I get to an FBS one that's been lined since 1976. But for most teams, we take you all the way back to 1976. All you have to do to click there is right here, last 40-plus years results. It's really the last 45 years results is what it is, and we'll change that heading very shortly. So as you can tell, Miami of Ohio does not do well in the non-conference games. And then if you click here and click on Cincinnati against Miami, it's a rivalry game, right? So you would expect the games to be sort of one way or the other. When you click here, you get the last 23 years results. And as you can tell here, Cincinnati, if it's green here, that means they won the game outright. So at a glance, you could tell that they have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 straight outright in the series. So the last 3 all against the spread in the series, pretty much since Martin went to bagging the non-conference games and going after conference games. So it's a series dominated by Cincinnati. It's one where Cincinnati, if you go look at the team pages for Cincy, they have done very well. They have gone 11-6-1 against the spread as a home favorite. Go check your magazine page for Cincinnati. Go under home favorite. Take it across the board, and you'll see they're 11-6-1 as a home favorite their last 18 games. So add it all up. I'm going to take Cincinnati, minus 22.5 as your first official play here today. Let's go to another matchup, and we're going to take a look at Duke against Charlotte. I'll probably forget by the end of it, so let me just click on the NFL real quick. When you do click on an NFL, you get the schedule. You'll have the stat leaders up. They don't start for another week, so that's why they're not up yet. You can click on the last 20 years results. Those will get updated for you. And they take you back 2020. You get individual stat leaders. If you play fantasy football, you'll love this. Tells you how each player is done in each game. And that's not just for last year or the year before that or the year before that or the year before that. It gives you all the way back 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, 2009. So if you got a fantasy football draft upcoming and you want to know how players have done in individual games on any season, it's all right here. Here's 2014. We'll get that one updated for you. 2015. Here's how the Browns did each game by game, each player. So you could tell that all at a glance. I'll have more on the NFL on tomorrow, or not tomorrow's, but next week's tape. All right, let's get to another game. I just thought I'd show you that we do have NFL completely updated here on there as well. And if you got a fantasy draft upcoming, you might want to check out those individual player stats. All right, let's take a look at Duke and Charlotte. Now, Duke's on the road for this game, so I'm going to put them on the left, and I'm going to put Charlotte on the right for this one. And once again, you could go to your magazine and get some of these stats. They come from this 10-year spread logs, which I find vital. But if you go look at Duke and how they have done, they are great against non-conference games, 17-4 the last 21 non-conference games. And take a look at last year for Duke. It was an atypical year. They didn't get to hit. They're a developmental team. They didn't have a spring practice. They didn't have the normal summer, so Cutcliffe didn't get to develop the team. They also suffered a large amount of turnovers. As you know, looking at turnovers equals turnaround the magazine. If you have a lot of turnovers, and they were minus 19, led the country in turnovers last year, negative turnovers, that is, you're generally going to have a bounce back year. They should this year. They did play Charlotte, and while the stats were close in this game, they won the game 53-19. We could take a look. If you click here on box score, that tells you how the game went down. Duke scored on a 65-yard run. They led 24-0. They led 31-13. They led 46-19. They won at 53-19. This is courtesy of collegepressbox.com. Great play-by-plays. You get this on every single game, and this takes you through play-by-play if you want for the game. You can go through and research the entire play-by-play on the game, see how it went. But Duke controlled the game last year. The thing I like most about Duke is how they do in their non-conference games, and this is just the opposite of Miami of Ohio. Duke's a team that generally knows they're going to get beat up in conference play, right? They've got better teams in the ACC than they are. So they know they need to take care of business when they play non-conference games, and they generally do. If you take a look at their non-conference record, they lost to Alabama here, but that's Alabama. They beat North Carolina A&T. They beat Middle Tennessee State. And who was their other non-conference game? Looks like they played all conference games other than that. In 2018, they covered against Army. They covered against Northwestern. They covered against Baylor. Once again, that's what this win-loss specifies. A 44-point favorite they didn't cover. That was one of the rare spread losses. They covered against NC Central. They covered against Northwestern. They covered against Baylor. And their other game was Army, and they did not cover that. That's, of course, playing the option. But you get the gist of it. 17-4 against the spread in non-conference games. They were minus 19 in turnovers last year. This is a non-conference game and a game they got to win. And Charlotte, meanwhile, when they play Power 5 teams, let's go take a look how they do against Power 5 teams. Charlotte here is, they played Duke last year and lost. Let's find another Power 5 team here. They played Clemson here and lost against the spread. Another Power 5 team. Tennessee, they actually covered that one. They only lost 14-3. They're actually 1-5, their last 6 against Power 5 teams. Let's go back to that Duke chart for a minute, because Duke will take you back all the way to 1976. So you want to know a spread in any game since 1976? It's all right here. And then the thing is, they didn't have college totals. You may not remember this if you're too young. They didn't have college totals in 2000 and 2001. They started experimenting with it on TV games in the early 2000s, and then it finally came full hilt where they put a total on every game here in 2004. So we've got totals for you on every game. And you see back then, a lot of totals were in the 40s and 50s. Complete contrast to what it is now, where the totals are in the 50s and the 60s, isn't it? But that is all back. And we also started adding halftimes in 2004, where you can see what the halftime score of the game was. And that comes all the way through here. You've got the halftime score of every single game. So these logs alone, you know, are worth $69 a year, which is the price for Phil Steele Plus. But basically, you take a Duke team that's 17-4 against the spread non-conference, minus 19 in turnovers last year, against a Charlotte team that's close by. It's not a big trip for Duke. That's 1-5 against the spread against Power 5 teams. I'm going to take Duke, minus 6 against Charlotte. Let's get to another one now. And we're going to take a look at Louisiana Tech against Mississippi State. And Skip Holtz has done a great job here at Louisiana Tech. Once again, we'll put them on the left. Take a look at Louisiana Tech. There they are right there. And we will take Mississippi State here to the right. Let's go ahead and get Mississippi State. And here they are. And, of course, last year was a first-year head coach, Mike Leach. I do expect better things out of Mississippi State this year, no doubt about it. But they're laying 23 points here. And we'll take a look at how Holtz does as a Power 5 away dog, or Power 5 dog, I should say. He's 10-5 against the spread. That's 2005. This, by the way, this I find fascinating as well. Head coaches since 1990. This tells you who the coach was: Joe Peace, Gary Crowton, Jack Bicknell, Derek Dooley, Sonny Dykes. And here's the Skip Holtz era. So it started in 13. You've got that on every team. You've got complete stats on every team down here, all the way back since 1988. So do make sure you utilize that. So Holtz since 13, when he takes on a Power 5 team, has done well. They did lose to Texas here in the opener, but go back a couple years ago, they played number 6 LSU here. They only lost that game 38-21. They were plus 20. It was 24-7 at the half. You could go back and research it, but I'm telling you, 10-5 against the spread versus Power 5 teams, and 22-12 against the spread as an away dog. Once again, go to your magazine, look at those last 10 years logs. They're all right there. Just follow along on the way dog, and you'll see Louisiana Tech 22-12-1. 12-2 against the spread as an away dog. And we saw that LSU game. So you've got a really good away dog. I think Mississippi State might be laying a few too many points here. Louisiana Tech has got an upgraded secondary. They added like 4 or 5 Power 5 transfers in the secondary, which should help them. Mississippi State, after that big opening game against LSU where they put up 44 points, only had 14-2, 14-0, 24-24, 24-10. They finally put up 51 against Missouri, but only 28 against Tulsa. So they don't put up a lot of points under Leach. They're laying 23 against a great away dog. They've got a game against NC State on deck. Louisiana Tech, meanwhile, only has an easier game. They've got don't they have a FCS team on deck? Let me take a look. Yes, Southeastern is on deck for them. So the situation favors Louisiana Tech as well. I'm going to take Louisiana Tech plus 23 as your third selection. We got another game here, West Virginia against Maryland. I think you'll find this one interesting. Let's go to the Maryland page. We'll put them on the right because they're the home team. Let's go to West Virginia page. They're the road team. Now, once again, you want to look at the series history. You come here and you click on Maryland, or in the other case, could have looked the other way. But as you see, West Virginia, once again, this column here, it's automatic to your eyes with the green and the red. Green means they won the game straight out, so you don't have to try to search for the score of the game. Green means they won the game straight out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 9-1 straight up. And in the series, they're also 7-2 against the spread versus West Virginia. So or against Maryland. So it's a series West Virginia has dominated. Now, here's something you'll find fascinating. West Virginia has a really good rush defense. Let's go take a look at it. Twice last year, a team was able to top 200 yards. Barely. They got to 200 yards, 203 and 236. Other than that, they hold all their opponents to 185 yards per game or lower. Once again, here you could see they held all their opponents basically to 185 or lower. 159 on the year, 132 last year, and they figure to be just as strong this year. Here's the thing with Maryland. Let's take a look at the Loxley era. Focus in here on the rush yards. And once again, the green and red, beautiful numbers. You can see when Maryland struggles to run the ball, red numbers, they lose. 59-0, 52-10, 73-14. So if they don't run the ball, they lose. Meanwhile, offensively, when they run the ball, 317, 354, 200, win. If you look at the games 185 yards or lower this season, they were 0-9 when they failed to top 185 yards rushing, but 3-0 when they topped 185 yards rushing. Last year, same thing. 64, they get beat 43-3. 281, they win the game outright. 123. This was an atypical one. They won the game by 16, only rushing for 123 yards. So that's the only time they went against the grain. 59 yards. They only scored 11 points and lost. And against Rutgers in the season final, this was an overtime game that they just got to 198 yards rushing, and they ended up losing the game. So only once have they topped 185, or you could basically even say 200 yards rushing, and won a game if you put the total at 200. And that was this one here. This Penn State game was the one outlier. So You got to think West Virginia, which has a series history and an outstanding defense, can hold them under that magic number of 185. They're my number 19 defense in the country. They're only laying 3 points on the road. They've shown they can win this series on the road. They're 4-1 against the spread on the road, 4-1 straight up here in Maryland. So add it all up. I like West Virginia -3 over Maryland as your fourth best bet. I got 3 more for you. Now, these involve FCS. And let me tell you, if you want to sign up to Phil Steele Plus, let me go to the homepage real quick. If you go to the homepage, just go to the store. When you go to the store, click on Phil Steele Plus. Phil Steele Plus is $69 for the season. You get access to these FBS team pages, NFL team pages, FCS team pages, all the way through the Super Bowl. And that's 6 months of football for $69. So about $10 a month, maybe $2 a week. And you get access to the same pages I use. And once again, the pages are sort of blank up top here right now. But once the season gets going, I got to tell you, when I'm doing radio shows and TV shows in the preseason, I'm using the magazine. I still use the magazine during the season, naturally, all the way through the bowls. But I'm using these pages here. I just line the teams up, and I can talk at length about any team, even the FCS. It's all right here on the pages. So let's go take a look at what we have on the FCS and a couple of games for this week. Southern is taking on, we're going to go to the team pages for the FCS. Now, we have them here in alphabetical order. If you know them in their conferences, God bless you. If you don't, right here, they have them in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Southern on the left. They're in the SWAC, and they're taking on Troy. Now, the thing that I want you to notice about Troy is what they've done under their head coach. Now, how long has their head coach been there? Gee, I wonder. Okay, we're going to look here. Troy's head coach, Chip Lindsey, got there in 19 and 20, so he's been there for 2 years. What's his MO? Well, let's take a look at it. 19 and 20. So in 19, he's got a win by 29, a win by 28, a win by 24, a win by 21, a win by 36. Now, some of these losses you're looking at have been close, 7 points, 5 points, but most of the wins have been big. Win by 33, win by 20. Here was a close one, that Eastern Kentucky game. It throws it off just a little bit there. And then their other win was by 28 against Arkansas State, 29 against South Alabama. Generally, when Troy wins, they win the game big. So he likes to put the hammer down. He's got some close losses here by 2, by 7, by 3, by 4. I think Troy's going to be an under-the-radar team. They've got basically everybody back from last year, and when they win big. Now, these guys they're in the SWAC. Tells you that right up top here. They lost their head coach. Their head coach left. If you want to click and learn about Southern right here, tells you about Dawson Odoms, who, by the way, left after the spring to take over at Norfolk. And they have their special teams coordinator and safety coach taken over for him. And that's all right here in the text. This tells you a complete breakdown of what's happened at Southern, what's happened to their offense against Southern, what's happened to the defense for Southern, special teams for Southern, overall recap for Southern. We've got recaps on every team. It's like getting a magazine. The magazine, by the way, $29 gets you the FCS-only version if you want to learn about these guys. FCS, we give you spring individual leaders. Here's what they did. The guys that are back from the spring, or even if they're not back, they're there. 2019, you get individual leaders. 2018, you get individual leaders. You've got the color-coded green and red on the FCS all the way back to 2011. All this is at your hands for every FCS team. You could become an instant expert on Southern. And you can also learn that Southern, let's click and see how they do in FBS versus FCS games. Now, this shows you wins and losses. As you can tell, Troy rarely loses an FCS game, but they have not covered 4 of the last 5. That's interesting for Troy. But however, look at Southern. Now, I got to tell you, we flipped these. This green refers to Memphis because we don't have a team page for Southern. So if it's green down here, it's actually red. And if it's red over here, it's actually green. If it's green over here, it's actually red. So Southern, against FBS opponents, usually loses and loses big. Look at these scores. They haven't beaten an FBS opponent, and they're just 2 and 10 against the spread whenever they take them on. They've got losses by 31, 38, 37, 45, 34, 45. They usually lose and lose big. ULM, a weak team, they only lost 2 by 17, but everybody else 42, 47, 39, 49, 45. Yeah, they lose big. So Troy wins big. Southern loses big when they take on an FBS foe. Troy's off 2 losing seasons. They need to get their season started on a winning note. Southern is a team that did play in the spring here. but doesn't have an overall a huge amount of players coming back. So add it all up. I like Troy. I'm going to lay the 26.5 because when Troy wins, they win big. When Southern loses to FBS schools, they lose big. I'm taking Troy minus 26.5 in that. Two more games for you, and I think you'll find these interesting. Let's take a look at William and Mary, and they are taking on Virginia. Now, you probably know very little about William and Mary. I can tell you I wrote the forecast here. If you go into the forecast, I wrote a bunch of forecasts, probably about 45 of them I wrote myself this year, going through the team. So I learned a lot about William and Mary, and I learned a couple of factors here. In 19, they had these players back, and it was an uneven type of year. Let's go back up here. They beat Richmond. They were 5-7. And last year, the Tribe lost 8 of their top 9 tacklers on defense. They lost a close one to Richmond to open the year. Then they beat Elon 31-10. Then their season got disrupted by COVID. They lost their quarterback after week 2. They were banged up and played just one more game. Came against a powerhouse, James Madison. They lost that game by 28. It was their 5th straight losing season. But they have a lot of talent coming back. They had in a lot of transfers. And I break down each position for you here. Take you back to how the position was in 18, 19, and 20. And they had in, they've got, look at their offensive line. 3 of their offensive linemen are 6-year seniors, and the other 2 starters are seniors. So they got 5 seniors on the offensive line. They've got some transfers coming in, including Arizona transfer Kevin Doyle at QB, Lafayette transfer Cole Northrup at QB, and they had a True Frost Darius Wilson, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Virginia. So they've got all this coming back. Defensively, they've got a lot coming back, and they get the additions of a Boston College grad transfer in Tate Haynes, who started 5 games at BC, Canadian True Frost Ethan Yip, Howard transfer Ty Freeland. They were picked 11th by the coaches and media relations directors in the preseason poll. I think they surpass expectations. I'm bullish on William and Mary. I think they're going to be an under-the-radar team this year. And, as mentioned, I'd like this win over Elon. That was a pretty good win. The Richmond game, they only lost by 7, and a depleted team without their quarterback lost 38-10. You could see right here, no quarterback. Mathis was the QB, lost against James Madison. Ted Hefter got the start. So all that's available on every FCS team. You can become an instant expert. Now let's go to Virginia and take a look at this. And one thing I want to point out about Virginia, by the way, who's the coach of William and Mary? It's some guy named Mike London. Now, we're going to go to the Virginia page, and we're going to check out how Mike London appears on the Virginia page. How is that? Well, let's go down to coaches. And here we take a look at the coaches. Mike London was the coach there in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Didn't have a lot of success after this 8-5 season, but also didn't catch a lot of breaks. I talked to Coach London each and every year, and boy, it was they lost some close games, and it just didn't work out. Bronco Mendenhall's taken over, but Mike London's thinking about getting fired from Virginia, don't you? And so they've got a pretty improved team this year. And when you take a look at Virginia, they are a team. Oh, by the way, let's take a look at how William and Mary does against FBS foes. And once again, down here, you see this red. Red is actually green. Green is red. They're 8-5 against the spread when taking on FBS foes. Virginia's won their last 3, which is a good sign, but they also had lost the previous 3 against the spread. See who Virginia's got on deck. They got a big game against Illinois. And I look at the line on this game, and my number on the game was probably around 17-21. And the number on this game actually has Virginia favored by 33.5. So they not only have to win, they have to win by 5 touchdowns or more. I'm telling you, William and Mary is going to be a much improved team this year. So with London being the ex-coach there, having a little axe to grind perhaps, getting 33.5 on the road, I like William and Mary plus the 33.5. I got one more play for you. And I tell you what, it's a team I earned some respect for last week. Last week in this Phil Steele Plus tour, we went 1-1. Well, my one loss, I thought New Mexico State was going to give UTEP a game. They actually didn't. Now we're going to take a look at this week's game for UTEP, and they're taking on Bethune-Cookman. Here's the thing about Bethune-Cookman. If you click on the forecast area, you can see that since their 2019 squad, they've lost. They lost their top 7 tacklers from 2019. Top 7. They only have, I believe, 5 of the top 16 tacklers back. It's all in the write-up here. They also, Bethune-Cookman, lose their top quarterback, top 2 running backs, top 2 receivers. 4 of the top 15 tacklers are back. Now, Bethune-Cookman did win some games, but they were mostly against teams like Howard, Morgan State, NC Central. They got blown out by Miami of Florida 63-0. They got blown out by North Carolina A&T by 40 points. They did not even play last year. So that's another plus going for UTEP this season. And UTEP dealt me a loss last week here on Phil Steele Plus by winning that game, and winning that game impressively. Now, UTEP has got some weapons. Gavin Hardison, when I talked to Coach Dimmel going over the team, he says he's got the strongest arm of any quarterback he's ever coached. They've got 2 dangerous receivers, and Cowing and Garrett. These guys can catch the long ball, and they did last week. They averaged combined, 25 yards per catch between the 2 of them combined. A lot of long balls last week. So they like to go downfield with it. They've got the deep core of running backs to go with it. Their defense can get after you with the pass rush. They only had 3 sacks last week, but I think they can get after this Bethune-Cookman. They've got plenty of pass rushers. Read more on UTEP in your magazine. If you want to read more on Bethune-Cookman, click right here. But basically, when I line these 2 teams up and look at my computer rating, I think UTEP rolls. And look at UTEP. Last year, they got off their season, and they struggled a little bit against the FCS teams. They only beat SF Austin by 10. They only beat Abilene Christian by 4. Here, they're only laying 3 touchdowns. But after their 3-1 start, they lost some close games. I think they're ready to go. They're ready to build the confidence. And if they get this one, which they should, then they host New Mexico, host Old Dominion. They could be 4-1 heading into the second half of the season. There's some winnable games there. They could easily get to a bowl game this year. So they're playing with confidence. They just beat a New Mexico State team that I would favor over Bethune-Cookman, probably by 14 points. And they beat them 30-3. They had a 452, 190-yard edge. Bethune-Cookman didn't even play football last year. They've got a lot of question marks coming in. So you're only laying 3 touchdowns here, about 21.5 points. I like UTEP in this one. And they're going to be excited. They're going to actually have a home crowd for once, coming off last week's impressive win. So I'm going to take UTEP minus the 21 or 21.5. It was 19.5 earlier today. It's up to 21 right now. Take UTEP minus the 21. So there you go. 7 free plays for you. If you do just want the FCS, you can get that. Just go to the philsteele.com. Go to the homepage here. Go to the store. When you go to the store, you can come down here and click on the FCS. $29 gets you complete FCS access, and they'll have these team pages for the FCS updated for you all season long, color-coded in green and red. You want to take a look at a team like North Dakota State, you get it color-coded green and red all season long, all the way through it, individual player stats updated, and more. So there you go, 7 free plays. I'll tell you, Inside the Press Box this week has got 8 plays for you. Now, those aren't free. You can get Inside the Press Box at the store here on philsteele.com as well. If you want my top 8 plays for the week, just go to the homepage and go to the store. And when you click on the store, you can click on Inside the Press Box right here and get it for just, that's $249. That's a season of both. If you want the college only, it's $149 for the season. You can also get the individual Inside the Press Box as well. That'll be up there. I don't see it right now on the site here, but he'll have that updated. Todd will have that updated for you by the time you see this video. You'll be able to access the page. Just $20 a week for Inside the Press Box. Get my top 8 plays for the week. I'd like to say thanks for taking the time to watch the Phil Steele Plus tour today. Hopefully, if you're a Phil Steele Plus member, you learned a little bit more about how to utilize the site to its fullest, and hopefully the free plays have a big week for you this week. And thanks for watching.